My dear child, I urge you to pause all that you are doing, close any other tabs, and set aside anything you are holding. It is essential for you to be completely present, mind, heart, and spirit, for the message that is about to be conveyed, as it cannot be received in a half-hearted manner. This is not a message to be grasped while you are occupied with other tasks. The urgency of what heaven intends to communicate transcends human language's capacity, and I need you to understand this urgency as a sacred call, not one of fear. A final notice has been issued, not from a bank, a court, or any earthly institution, but from the courts of heaven itself. This notice bears the seal of eternity, delivered by divine messengers to your screen at this very moment, because all previous attempts to reach you have gone unnoticed. In its infinite patience, relentless love, and resolve for you to experience the fullness of what has been destined for your life, heaven is making a final effort. This is the ultimate notification, the last call from heaven before a door closes that may not open in the same manner again. If you found peace, strength, or encouragement through this message, please subscribe, and may God continue to bless and guide you every day. The inheritance is genuine. I refer to $1 million inheritance, not merely as a metaphor for spiritual richness, but as a concrete reflection of the abundant provision God ordained for you before your formation in the womb. This inheritance was established before your birth, recorded in the heavenly books well before your first breath, and assigned to your name with the same irrevocable intention that God employed when he inscribed your days in his book, as declared in Psalm 139. However, the notice carries with it a crucial component that will demand every bit of spiritual courage you possess to embrace without flinching. You have turned away from this inheritance, not once, not twice, but 3 distinct times. At 3 spiritual crossroads, the door to your complete financial destiny stood open, yet you hesitated, turned away, and unknowingly declined it. Heaven has observed this with love, patience, and a persistence only a God who exists beyond time can maintain. Yet, even divine patience exists within spiritual seasons and designated windows. The window that has remained open, despite your previous refusals, has now reached its final phase. You have 10 minutes left, not 10 literal minutes, but a pressing spiritual urgency akin to the countdown of a timer. This is your final notice. You are reading this now because heaven has granted you one last invitation, one final opportunity to seize the inheritance that you have previously declined. If you remain with this message until the end and receive it with faith that translates into action rather than mere feelings, this time you can say yes. However, I must ask you to do something immediately before we proceed. There is something awaiting you in the first pinned comment below this video. This message was left there before you arrived, specifically for someone who would acknowledge this final notice and respond to it. Heaven anticipated your presence here and prepared something special for this moment. Please take a moment to check the first pinned comment to see what has been reserved for you, and then return, because what this message reveals will transform your understanding of every financial experience up to this point. Comment, "Heaven has my attention. I am receiving this final notice." Declare this as your spiritual response to the urgent call that has just been issued. Your affirmation of this message represents your first step toward embracing the acceptance that can change everything. Now, let us explore your first declination, the time you overlooked your financial opportunity. My beloved child, allow me to guide you back, not to a specific date on a calendar, since the spiritual realm does not always align with human temporal records, but to a moment, a feeling, a pivotal junction that you may have interpreted as anxiety, uncertainty, or mere timing. In reality, that was the first instance the door to your $1 million inheritance swung wide open, and you chose to turn away. The initial rejection presented itself as an opportunity that appeared overwhelmingly significant. It emerged during a period when your financial confidence was lacking, when the distance between your current situation and the potential opportunity felt insurmountable. The chorus of reason, bolstered by cautious voices from those around you, advisors urging you to be careful, to be realistic, and to consider the potential for failure, drowned out the quiet whisper within that urged, "This is it. This is your moment. Step forward." Consequently, you did not take that step. This decision was not a reflection of your wisdom or spiritual maturity. Rather, it was a consequence of an adversary who strategically manipulated circumstances to render the prudent choice appear safe, while the leap of faith felt reckless. This foe aimed to prevent you from seizing that opportunity, well aware of the rewards that lay beyond. Employing your own doubts and fears, he convinced you that the risks were too great to bear. Since that time, you have pondered that door, revisiting it in moments of solitude and reflection, often grappling with what-if scenarios and feeling the sting of a lost opportunity that held immense significance yet went unacknowledged. This incident marked your first rejection of potential. Rest assured, God witnessed it. He did not judge you harshly for your decision or withdraw your inheritance in consequence. Instead, He, in His divine capacity, forged an alternative path, presenting another door and an additional invitation. The Almighty, who exists beyond the confines of time, is not limited by a single mischance. He embodies the essence of second chances, third chances, just as He sent a prophet once more to the same people, reopening the door for the same purpose, extending the invitation longer than any earthly benefactor could sustain. Deuteronomy 28 verse 13 proclaims, "The Lord will make you the head, not the tail, if you heed the commands of the Lord your God that I give you today, and follow them closely. You will always find yourself at the pinnacle, never at the bottom, always at the top." This declaration signifies the inheritance spoken over your life, which was momentarily rejected when fear overshadowed faith at the first opportunity. But notice has been issued once more. The door stands open again, and now you possess the advantage of comprehension regarding what lies ahead. Affirm, "I acknowledge the initial door, and I choose to step through it now in spirit." This represents a retroactive declaration of faith. In the spiritual realm, where time does not abide by a linear progression, you can assert your yes over every moment when you previously said no. You can realign your spiritual journey with the destiny that was intended for you. Proclaim this affirmation and let it resonate in every spiritual corridor where your initial rejection occurred. Moving on to the second rejection, which involved a relationship that drained your sense of purpose. My cherished child, the second time you turned away from your inheritance did not occur at a financial decision point, but rather at a relational juncture. This scenario is perhaps the most painful of the three, as the second rejection was intertwined with someone you cherished. The loss of both your assignment and that individual became enmeshed in a complex knot that your heart has yet to fully untangle. This second rejection emerged through a relationship misaligned with your financial destiny, perhaps a romantic connection, a deeply significant friendship, or a promising business partnership. Regardless of its form, the underlying pattern remained unchanged. as you moved toward your financial calling. This relationship gradually became the focal point, subtly diverting your trajectory from your intended path toward orbiting another individual's reality. Decisions that could have propelled your financial success were postponed in favor of maintaining the relationship. Opportunities that might have enhanced your prosperity were sacrificed on the altar of preserving harmony, prioritizing another's comfort over your divine assignment. Resources designated to nurture your future were instead absorbed into a relational dynamic not intended by divine design for your long-term benefit. Meanwhile, the adversary observed this with satisfaction. Having learned from the first rejection that a direct approach, offering you an opportunity and trying to instill fear, was less effective. Consequently, he altered his strategy. He introduced a person into your life whose presence diverted your resources, energy, and time from the financial doors that heaven was prepared to open for you. This aligns with the warning of Proverbs 4 verse 23, which advises, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. This is not a directive to isolate your heart from emotions, but rather to protect the course of your life from becoming misaligned due to attachments that do not resonate with your true destiny. When one's heart becomes ensnared by distractions, every aspect of life, including finances, can be diverted in that same misdirected way. I am not suggesting that the individual involved was malevolent or that the relationship lacked worth. However, it is important to recognize that genuine connections can be manipulated by adversarial forces to steer your journey away from its intended course, particularly because the loss of something meaningful feels significant and costly. The greater the sacrifice necessary to disengage from this redirection, the more potent it becomes as a means of delay. The second deviation manifested itself in matters of love. Healing from this second deviation, 2, unfolds in love, the unconditional love that God holds for you, which affirms that this deviation need not determine your financial future. He recalibrated your route, opening a new path, for your inheritance remains intact, and the mission endures. The designation of wealth has not lapsed because of your relational choices, which may have introduced delays. It remains patiently available, awaiting your acknowledgement. I hereby release all relational delays and reestablish alignment with my financial destiny. This marks your declaration of realignment. May the bonds that led you astray be gently yet firmly severed, free from bitterness or regret, and celebrated with the clarity of someone who has comprehended their circumstances and decisively returned to the path meant for them. The next section addresses the third deviation, which pertains to the identity wound that led you to reject your own blessings. My cherished child, this third deviation resides the deepest within you. It is the most rigorously entrenched by the adversary, as it originates from within rather than from external circumstances. The first deviation stemmed from a fear of opportunity, while the second was influenced by the redirection of love. However, the third deviation concerns something more intrinsic, more damaging, yet ultimately more liberating once identified and dismantled. In this third instance, you relinquished your million-dollar inheritance through your own words and beliefs, shaped by an identity that became so familiar that you no longer recognized it as misaligned with your divine assignment. This third deviation manifests as a deep-seated, unyielding belief that such abundant blessings are not meant for you. It is not overtly vocalized or actively expressed, but rather it resides beneath the surface amidst every prayer, proclamation, or teaching heard about prosperity and provision, whispering contrary thoughts. Yes, that may apply to some individuals. Yes, God blesses others financially. Yes, abundance is attainable. But for me, for people like me, from backgrounds like mine, with the history I bear, with the mistakes of my past, from the family that raised me, perhaps, but maybe not. Not for the significant blessings. That level of wealth is reserved for others. This represents the identity wound, deeper than the fear associated with the first deviation and the love connected to the second. It is not incited by external situations. Rather, it activates automatically, independent of opportunities or relationships. It operates as a consistent background noise, subtly disqualifying you from claiming your inheritance before you even arrive at the moment of choice. The adversary has nurtured this wound over the years. Through each financial setback, each delayed breakthrough, every time you prayed without results, and whenever you witnessed others stepping into the prosperity you sought, while feeling the quiet, shameful pang of, why them and not me? Alongside this, every voice from your family lineage associating financial hardship with humility and abundance with arrogance has ingrained an unconscious belief that remaining modest is somehow more virtuous than embracing abundance. This notion is a deceit from the depths of despair, costing you far more than the impacts of fear or the challenges of love. This lie has led you to repeatedly decline your inheritance daily, not through grand moments of choice, but through a subtle, ongoing, invisible decision to accept a diminished perception of yourself compared to God's view of you. As Romans 8 verse 17 states, you are an heir of God and a co-heir with Christ. You are an heir, not a guest or a visitor, not someone who receives scraps after the rightful heirs have claimed their share. As an heir, you possess full legal, spiritual, and eternal rights to everything that rightfully belongs to the Father. The $1 million inheritance and everything it encompasses were inscribed in the will with your name specified. The wound leading you to believe otherwise is a lie, while the identity bestowed upon you by heaven prior to your birth is the truth. Today marks the end of the third deviation. I declare, I am an heir of God, and I embrace what was designated for me. Let this be the moment when the identity wound begins to heal. Let this serve as the proclamation that alters the internal narrative from not for me to specifically for me. Let this be the pivotal moment when the third and most profound deviation is reversed. Now, let us explore the reasoning behind why heaven issues final notices and the spiritual dynamics surrounding the closure of opportunities. My beloved child, someone reading this at this very moment may be grappling with a question that feels both theologically profound and personally poignant. If God loves me, if this inheritance was intended for me before my birth, if he has witnessed the 3 deviations and allowed the door to remain ajar, why is there any indication that a final notice exists? Why would an opportunity draw to a close? Isn't infinite love synonymous with infinite patience? Doesn't the God who transcends time imply that there is always more time? Allow me to respond with the same profound sincerity that underscores this entire message. While God's love is indeed infinite, his patience is extraordinary, and his mercy is everlasting, as affirmed repeatedly in Psalm 136. This does not mean that every specific opportunity is perpetually available, irrespective of individual responses. Time, as a created entity, is real, and seasons carry significance. The creator of both windows and seasons permits them to function according to their inherent nature, which entails that they will open and subsequently close. The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, presents a clear affirmation of this principle, asserting that there is an appropriate time and season for every activity under heaven. Opportunities are not accessible at all times. Rather, seasons present unique chances that cannot be replicated in subsequent periods. Consider the agricultural harvest. You may plant in spring, nurture in summer, and reap in autumn. Yet if you delay harvesting until winter, you will find no crops to gather, not because the harvest was not genuine. It is not a failure on God's part to create opportunities. Rather, the season for them has reached its conclusion. Spiritual inheritance operates on the principle of designated moments, known in Greek as kairos moments, which exist outside the ordinary passage of time. These moments are unique, characterized by specific openings that carry distinct assignments. They are appointed, definitive occurrences with clear beginnings and endings. Once the appointment concludes, the opportunity it held does not remain in limbo, waiting endlessly. It shifts and transitions to the next phase of divine order. Your initial 3 declinations did not close the door because God, in His mercy, extended the season each time, forged a new path, and issued a renewed invitation. However, the final notice carries the urgency of a window that has been kept open well past its intended season due to a specific grace and mercy from a God unwilling to let you miss your destiny. This mercy, this extended grace, has now reached its ultimate expression. This is not a form of punishment, but rather love manifesting in truth. Heaven is communicating, I have sustained this opportunity for you through 3 refusals. I am still holding it, but this last extension is now in effect. I need you, in this moment, to affirm your decision with clarity and conviction, overriding any previous refusals. This is why the notice states, 10 minutes remain. Acknowledging this opportunity, I recognize my appointed time, and I will not allow it to slip past me again. This declaration aligns you with the active kairos moment, positioning you spiritually to receive what this opportunity encapsulates before it closes. As for the spiritual implications of having 10 minutes remaining, I want to unpack this phrase for you with the attention it demands, as it is neither a threat nor a marketing strategy. It embodies a divine reality conveyed in a manner that your soul can understand. When heaven communicates that 10 minutes remain, it expresses a particular type of urgency that transcends ordinary human time. In the spiritual realm, these 10 minutes do not signify an impending disaster, but rather a countdown to fulfillment. It marks the end of an extended period of invitation, the closing of a unique access point, and the conclusion of a divine offer graciously sustained through 3 previous refusals. What is altered in these 10 minutes is not God's love for you, nor your value in His sight, your status as His child, or your entitlement to His provisions. What changes is the specific configuration of the door that has remained open since before your birth. This includes the alignment of spiritual forces, divine provision, angelic assistance, and earthly opportunities that define this particular aspect of your inheritance. Consider this. There are seasons when the same prayer yields vastly different results, not due to any variability in God, but because of the divine arrangement of circumstances, the positioning of supernatural support, the opening of pathways and aligned angels, all of which operate according to heaven's calendar. When all elements come into alignment, as they do in this moment for you, the prayer you offer carries exceptional potency. The declaration you make resonates with supernatural significance. The affirmation you give regarding your inheritance is backed by the weight of a divinely appointed moment. The 10 minutes represent the breadth of this appointed window, and you find yourself standing within it right now,